Welcome to another episode of Unlocking MSP Growth. Today, I had the privilege of talking to Doug Childress, an MSP leader in Australia, about his thoughts on the changes of the industry and some of the blockers to MSP growth.
Doug Childress, been 38 years in the industry. Started my career back before there was really this thing called the internet, and this is my fifth technical company. The last one I exited out of quite successfully in 2015, and now I'm back in the industry once again.
That's exciting. And tell me a little bit about your current company and what you guys do.
Right, thank you. So Claratti Workspace is the name of the company. The idea that I had when I started the company was, how could we build a platform that would solve all the gaps in technology? So we have cybersecurity as kind of a specialty area, people doing IT consulting, outsourcing, help desk, etc. So what I did was to build a technology as a service platform offering where we sell that to MSPs. So the MSP can come to us and we can manage everything from the sales process all the way through to the invoice, and we can add value as far as like bolting on to them to give them additional tech, and we do that 24/7 globally.
That's awesome. And what got you into the MSP space? Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience leading up to this?
Yeah, so where I landed in my last company that I sold in 2013 was I was a licensed carrier, so I delivered the internet that managed the firewall, managed the routing, switching, voice, and video, but I didn't touch the servers and applications.
Yeah.
I didn't have that skill set. But then when I sold that business and retired and had time to really reflect on, do I get back into the industry, I started thinking about, well, what would I do? And this idea of this concept, technology as a service platform, came about. So how I got back into being an MSP is I made 2 acquisitions. Those acquisitions, I bought talent, skills, expertise that then got us into that particular space, and then I built the Kaseya entire product suite around that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like you didn't stay retired for very long.
I think it was two months. 2 months.
Yeah. So we're talking about MSP growth strategies, and I'm wondering, seems like you've been around the industry for quite some time. What have you seen as the biggest changes while you've been around the industry in terms of sales and growth for MSPs?
Yeah, I think, an MSP, a typical MSP, they're really typically technically led. So they're going to grow organically from a couple of guys into 10, 20 techs. They're focused on the end client. They're focused on break fix, and they're focused on servicing the customer, building trust. What they don't have time for is all the back office, paperwork, invoicing, billing, all of that other stuff. So what we're seeing is more and more MSPs today are getting to a certain size where they can't grow beyond that because they don't have enough horsepower, meaning profit, to be able to hire the back-end office staff to be able to allow them to take a step to the next level. So what we're finding today is probably 80% of MSPs that we survey are looking to sell because they've hit a ceiling they can't get beyond.
Yeah.
And what we say to them is we can help you get beyond that ceiling without hiring any more people, without investing in any more technology. You simply let us do the back-end services for you. And that fee that we charge is very minimal. Right. It allows that MSP to absorb that into their cost. One human resource, they get access to another 60 resources on their side.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems like, so I looked into the Kaseya industry reports, and I remember seeing that M&A was, I think by a large margin, the biggest growth strategy for most MSPs. I think it was about 61%. That was the top growth strategy. And that aligns pretty closely to what you're talking about. I'm wondering, what are the other growth strategies and what are the challenges that MSPs are running into?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is how do you get your sales reps in front of those customers? And, whether it be a lead gen, cold call, somebody actually taking, and again, this is a great example. I met an MSP. He got 5 new quotes, customers.
Yeah.
And he said to me, it's going to take me an hour per customer
Right.
just to write the quote. I'm like, wow, if we could automate that for you, means that sales rep can be more productive.
Right.
So, and it doesn't matter what size MSP you are, you face the same challenges. The sales process is very difficult. It needs to be standardized. That's tough to do. All the way through to the billing headaches and making sure that you don't have revenue leakage.
Yeah. You say the sales process is very difficult. Let's dig into that a little bit more. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think the sales process is, we're in a world of technical topics. And the technical topics means that typically a sales rep has got to either be fully skilled up on a particular product, or they've got to bring a product manager or somebody, a technical specialist, into the call with them. So we're tying 2 resources up. If we can bring knowledge down to the cold face and let that knowledge leverage AI and make it more meaningful, then we can have more advanced discussions at an earlier stage and only bring the technical people in, at the stage where they're actually required.
Right. So it sounds like one of the biggest challenges you've seen is this technical gap in the sales rep.
Absolutely.
And that ties up some of the resources. So a little plug for my company now. NIAC is an AI sales enablement platform for MSPs. And what we do is we provide live guidance in real-time sales situations. So phone calls and video calls, we provide hints on what the rep should say, show, and do, which questions to ask at the right time. And we dynamically update those talk tracks in real time based on how the buyer is responding. So you're one of our customers. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're solving some of these challenges with NIAC?
Oh, absolutely. So 9 months ago, we started with you guys, roughly, and my aim was to be able to take 38 years of knowledge and to write a script.
Yeah.
And to have this script be automated. So I think I said to you, can you turn me into a bot?
Yeah.
And 9 months later, we've done that.
Yeah.
We've done it. And I'm very, very pleased to say that, we were able to hire a person that had the knowledge of only unlocking a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And within 6 days, 7 days, I think it was, this person
5 business days.
5 business days. This person was able to set their first appointment.
Yeah.
Selling cybersecurity suite, which is a very complicated sale.
Yeah. Without any prior knowledge of the industry or the product.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your product not only gave us the ability to sell a technical concept, and when I say sell, getting to the right person in the organization, it also enables us to relearn that process and to make sure that if it can be improved, it is improved in real time.
And it frees up those technical resources because you can have those deeper conversations earlier on.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So I've been digging into MSPs a lot over the past couple of months, and one thing I've learned, and I want to get your thoughts on, is that typically MSPs grow through inbounds, referrals, in their own personal networks. Yes. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely spot on.
And there's not much of an emphasis on direct sales.
Right,
Yeah.
And again, it just comes down to a resourcing thing.
Yeah.
And you look at the majority of the MSPs, there's some out there that are large,
right,
and they became large through acquisitions.
Yeah.
But the majority of the MSPs out there, 80% probably, is going to be, in the smaller end of the scale, and they don't have the extra resources to be able to go out there and, build an effective lead gen system, have a cold calling face for the company, and that's a roadblock, major roadblock.
And probably a lot of these technical MSP operators don't have much experience with sales themselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
They're technical.
Yeah.
Mainly they're technical.
Right. And if I remember right from the Kaseya industry reports, I believe it was 80% of MSPs, I don't remember if this was worldwide or in the US, have fewer than 3 or fewer employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Right.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so they're building their business off trust
Yeah.
and existing clients, refreshing the existing hardware. You know, they're just really managing the farm.
And then you hit a plateau where
Yes.
you've exhausted all of those resources, and then what do you do?
At that point, you've got to look at either, hopefully you're profitable enough,
Yeah.
you know, but the average MSP, you know, if they're turning a 15% EBITDA, they're doing a great job,
Right.
But a lot of them aren't.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you grow? You either go find a VC or an investment partner,
Mm-hmm.
or you put your hand up for maybe an acquisition, and that's what we're seeing happen across the industry right now.
What do you think is stopping them from doing more of the direct sales?
It's the cost of doing that. It's the
Right.
cost of those resources, and that's where what we've developed is we take it from the lead gen
Yeah.
all the way through to post-sale support. And the customer, like an MSP, the
Yeah.
one we talked about, let's say they've got 3 users, they come to us, they get a lead gen, outbound lead gen system
Yeah.
as part of our service, all the way through to a 24/7 support mechanism.
Yeah. And another thing I've learned, and I want to get your thoughts on, is it seems like it's hard for MSPs to find high quality sales reps because a lot of the sales reps are, getting eaten by SaaS and hardware.
Yes.
And so, how do MSPs typically find a salesperson? And is that challenging?
Oh, it's incredibly challenging. And I mean, if you look at the average package of a sales rep, or with their OTEs, so their on target earnings, they're going to be looking at somewhere between 130 and 200,
Yeah.
no matter what market you go to.
In the MSP industry?
In the MSP
Right.
industry. And the reason for that is because it's a growth industry. But the problem that throws back on the owner
Yeah.
is how can I afford it?
And what's stopping them from getting, maybe less experienced or less quality salespeople?
Well, it's the knowledge that they lack.
Right.
So, you've got to be able to get a sales rep that's got a certain degree of knowledge
Yeah.
to be able to talk about a product, with
Right.
great proficiency.
Intelligently. And they're
Yeah.
looking for the jargon and the industry lingo, and if you don't speak the language, then they don't trust you, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's really where your package has really
Yeah.
helped us, because I write the script
Right.
once,
Yeah.
I give it to you, and
Right.
you guys perfect it.
And the AI personalizes it for every company that the sales rep is talking to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
And I really love that feature. I mean, to be able to know I'm about to talk to a customer
yeah.
and know all of that research that a sales rep would typically have to spend hours doing.
Right.
It's at their fingertips.
Yeah. And the technology is only going to keep getting better, and I'm really excited about that. But getting back to MSPs, I've noticed that this is a very competitive time in the industry. It seems like the barrier to entry is a lot lower than it used to be. Now there's MSP services that you can roll up and resell, and it takes a lot less, I think, to become an MSP today.
Yes.
So what would you say to somebody who's starting out to stand out from the crowd?
That's a great question, and the best answer for this is this. You could come straight out of uni with a computer degree of whatever, pick a degree. You could sign up with Claratti as a technology and service platform. We give you worldwide coverage
Yeah.
that moment.
Okay.
No financial commitments, no resources. That one person becomes a global MSP.
That's amazing. And are you planning on offering any other support or services to them also?
We absolutely do. So we do currently provide Apple, Samsung. So we provide everything from the physical device
Yeah.
all the way through to managing it,
Yeah.
making sure that any risks that might come up, firmware being out of date, whatever patching upgrades, we take care of that.
Yeah.
Just to ensure that the end customer is running in a safe environment.
Right. And, aside from, Claratti, what else would you say? Like, I've heard, picking a niche is really key. I was talking to somebody last week, and he said he saw an MSP who only works with entertainment facility operators.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I don't remember exactly what it was, like amusement parks and flight simulators, and, that's very niche. So, would you have any other strategies to recommend?
Look, I think most of those that focus on, like just a niche industry, they typically have something like that in their background.
Yeah.
So what they do is they say, technology is the way to go. I used to be in this industry.
Right.
They're comfortable with what they know.
Yeah.
And then they kind of blossom inside of that industry. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Growth strategy is, why lock yourself down just to one area? If you've got a team behind you that can help support you as you grow and develop, and you're looking after the inbound and the outbound lead gen side, and again, we do it as a service, so it's a subscription base.
Right.
And obviously, the more things you take, the packages change, but we make that really affordable for an MSP.
Yeah.
So they go, right, I get all of this, or I need to hire this many heads.
Right. And what was the other thing? So I was talking to somebody today we're at the Kaseya conference. I was talking to somebody today, and their MSP is very geographically focused in like I don't know what state it was, but basically like a 3-city area in a specific state in the United States. And what would you say to them? Is that a good strategy for an MSP starting out, and how do you grow beyond that?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, they're going to start kind of in their hometown area.
Yeah.
Being able to reach out a bit further, really, it just comes down to the time and resources that the individual techs might have. So what we want to be able to do is to deploy tools on these sites so that we can optimize the fixing of any issues and automate it so that the tech is able to travel a bit further and focus more on growing the client relationship.
And how would you suggest an MSP switch from cost-based pricing to value-based pricing?
Yeah.
Because I know that that's a growing strategy in the industry, is instead of charging a fixed cost or whatever, look at really how it affects and I could be wrong about this, correct me, change it to how does it affect the customer's bottom line, and then charging based on the value you provide.
Well, yeah, that's a really great question, but it's got kind of a two-pronged approach as far as an answer goes. Most MSPs that are in that 3 to 10 techs, they're afraid to charge.
Yeah.
They're afraid to actually put a value on their service.
So they offer their services at too low of a price.
I believe.
Yeah.
I believe. And, they're small. They don't lose a customer. Losing one client's like losing 10 to maybe a bigger one.
Yeah.
And those are important things because it's not easy being an entrepreneur and running an MSP.
Yeah.
And it's trust me, I've been here now 7 years. I understand the mechanics of it.
Right.
So there's one element. It is, getting that balance of price to value proposition correct.
Right.
And the other bit is unless you've got a platform that can help you build packaging, it's impossible to do so effectively and do it with accuracy, because what you'll find is you'll miss things along the way. The customer will grow and morph and change, and if you don't have a system there that can capture that, you're potentially robbing yourself.
It seems like there's a potential for a lot of revenue leakage.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how does that look? Do MSPs not have a good eye on how much things cost and usage and?
They do, but what they don't have is they don't have a live feed coming in that says, hey, this month we've got 20 licenses from this customer and whatever number of licenses. So they need to be able to capture that data from the supplier
Right.
and then compare it to what they're actually invoicing. And I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. A customer,
Yeah.
and I won't name who
Sure,
or how, but they upgraded from 20 users. I think they went to about 35 over a course of 6 months.
Yeah.
And the technicians provisioned the license, but
Yeah.
they sent an email to the accounts team and said, hey, by the way, don't forget to
Oh,
bill.
yeah.
And accounts team, it got buried in their inbox.
Yeah.
There's 5 people on the accounts team, and they're like, well, I don't know who did it.
Easy to slip through the cracks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And also probably the costs change depending on how many licenses you have. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you not only lost the revenue,
Yeah.
you paid the vendor.
Right.
So it was a double whammy.
Yeah. And I'd imagine if you'd probably unlock, economies of scale if you go from, 10 licenses to 1,000 licenses. Like the cost per license is going to go down.
Absolutely.
So if you don't track that carefully, you don't know what your exact costs are.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. And
Right.
again, it comes back to the system.
Yeah.
If you've got the system, what you'll
Yeah.
find is company MSPs
Yeah.
that are automated are going to far outgrow a non-automated MSP.
Right. And when you say automated, you mean the back office, the admin, the invoicing, the billing.
100%.
Yeah, right. And that's
But
what Claratti does.
Yeah, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
But then with what you do
Yeah.
and us together,
Right.
we now bring a whole dimension to the MSP
Yeah.
where they can have an outbound sales path.
Yeah.
They can also have an automations engine on the inside where
Yeah.
we hope by the end of this calendar year we'll actually be able to solve tickets without actually having a human touch them. Now,
Wow.
we may not be able to do that,
Yeah.
but
It's
for a
ambitious.
handful of tickets,
Yeah.
but that'll only get better, as you say.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And going back to the issue of, value-based pricing, do you think MSPs in general have a good understanding of their value proposition?
No.
What do you think is the gap there? What's missing?
Well, I think the gap is the MSP will take the products that they're comfortable with and they'll bundle that.
Yeah.
But if the MSP, being technical,
Right.
if they don't have an understanding of the other elements, they won't touch them because they know their name and their reputation's at risk when they're in front of the customer.
Right.
So where we come in is we give them access to every product and we help them. So we're their second line of defense.
Yeah. And this might not be right, but my general idea when I'm thinking about MSPs is, like you said, most MSP operators are technical. I would say if you asked an MSP to, the typical sales interview question, sell me this pen, they would approach it, like how somebody who doesn't have a background in sales would. It can write underwater, it can write upside down, it's gold plated, you can put it in the microwave, and then, feature done.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't really, understand the customer's, position, and, a salesperson would, what do you use a pen for? How often do you use a pen? Are there any special situations where, you need, X, Y, or Z? And I think that's probably where the gap is, as I understand it.
Yeah, and I think too the other thing is understanding what the customer's expectations are. What do you want to see?
Yeah.
What's important to you?
Right.
And then being able to say during the conversation with the customer might say, "Well, we're really concerned about dark web
Right.
data leakage."
Yeah.
And then you need, as a sales rep, to know that you've got that in your arsenal.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that's challenging for most MSPs because they sell how many products? Hundreds?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
70 to 100.
Yeah, and knowing the ins and outs of each of those is impossible. Plus, they're all changing frequently. They each integrate with different partners, and they each have different versions, and there's new features and updates, and it's impossible to keep track of all that.
Yeah. Well, like they said here at Kaseya,
Yeah.
vendor fatigue.
Right.
So on average, an MSP is going to manage 12 vendors.
Yeah.
Now that managing those 12 different vendors is not an easy thing to do.
Right.
And then you've got to think about those 12 vendors' products and services. And yes, you're right. I mean, it becomes a distraction for an MSP who wants to build trust, sell products, service a customer.
And probably each of the, beyond just, the feature updates and whatever, each of those products has competitors and alternatives, and there's probably different packages, and it's, unless you're spending every second of every day researching all this stuff, you can't stay on top of it. And if you're doing that, you're not selling.
You're not selling.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And that's one thing I'm excited about NIAC for, is we can aggregate all that information for you and give it to you when it's most relevant.
Yes.
So you take that burden off of the sales rep.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we can now monitor how the workflows are performing. We can monitor how the people are performing.
Yeah.
And we can quantify the amount of money we're spending versus the amount of money we're receiving.
Yeah. With the system you're building, you can turn it into like a coin-operated machine. You put a quarter in, you pull the lever, and a dollar comes out, and you can really, forecast more accurately.
Absolutely.
So, are there any? What do you think is the biggest thing that's changed in MSP sales from last year to this year?
Cybersecurity, 100%.
Yeah.
Every conversation that our teams are having with partners, with customers, the very first thing we're talking about, they're asking us, is cybersecurity, because it's becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
And it's actually going to smaller and smaller companies.
Yeah. That's interesting. And how are MSPs staying on top of this, if that's the change?
This is where they're now panicking.
Right.
Because they're like, what do? We've got to go out and invest all these thousands of dollars of our thin bottom line to be able to buy the right products and services. So we have a deal with Kaseya where we actually bulk buy. So we buy thousands of licenses from them.
Yeah.
And then we sub those out.
Right.
So a three-person MSP can come to us and get everything that we have as a product.
Yeah. So I want to start wrapping this up, and to summarize, it seems like, in your opinion, the growth challenges for MSPs really come down to a couple of things. It's competitive. There's a lot of things to manage in the back office. It's resource intensive. It's hard to find the right salespeople. Most MSP operators are technical and don't have much sales experience. And the keeping track of everything, all those products and partners and vendors, is becoming more and more challenging.
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
No, 100%.
Yeah. And if you were going to summarize, your response to those challenges, what would you say?
Well, look, I think the hardest thing for an MSP today is capital.
Yeah.
It is capital to build, grow, and scale.
Yeah.
And access to capital, because we're in the technology industry, investors are very reluctant. You've got to show demonstrated results.
Yeah.
They want to see that monthly recurring revenue growing and growing. And if you can do that, then you'll get the capital you need.
Right.
And eventually you'll get over the hurdle that you will not otherwise get over.
And that probably comes down to forecasting. The ability to forecast and grow. And to do that, you would need to, solve some of those bottlenecks and avoid revenue leakage, like you were talking about. Yeah. And it seems like Claratti and NIAC are positioned to help with that in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we hop off here, do you have any parting words of wisdom to an MSP operator who might be watching this?
No, look, I think the wisdom would be learn from the other people that have made the mistakes.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to put a price on yourself, your value, but invest in the things that can make you deliver the value back to the customer by way of showing them what you're actually doing for them.
And I'd add to that don't be afraid of picking up the phone and making some calls.
100%.
Because you need to, it's either plateau, get acquired, or focus more on direct sales, right?
Yes.
And not everybody is comfortable with plateauing, especially if you don't have that EBITDA margin that you want. Not everybody's in a position to be acquired, but everybody's in a position to do direct sales.
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Doug.
Thank you, David.